The European Union suspended most sanctions of some Zimbabwean officials on Monday after voters there approved a new constitution, paving the way for an election to decide whether President Robert Mugabe extends his 33-year rule. The move is the most far-reaching step so far in the European Union's strategy of easing sanctions to encourage political and economic reform in Zimbabwe. The southern African country has been governed by an uneasy coalition since Mr. Mugabe and Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai were forced into a power-sharing deal after disputed 2008 elections. Now, for more discussion on the suspended sanctions, I am joined by Blessing Zulu, a reporter with VOA's Zimbabwe service and a regular on our show. Thanks for coming on the show again, Blessing.
The pleasure is mine.
So the EU is slowly cutting down the number of people on the list. In February, they took off some. Now, this big chunk, 81 people at one time. What do you make of that move?
I think it's significant and really meant to encourage political reforms in Harare. And maybe it can also be a sign that the moves that they'd tried to implement earlier on to try and force Mr. Mugabe by imposing sanctions on him to reform have not worked. And as a result, they want to try and accommodate him and see if that can work.
Now, by accommodating him, they have not taken President Mugabe off the list, nor his wife. In fact, they've kept 10 people on the list. Why isn't President Mugabe off the list yet?
I think according to what we are hearing from the EU, they want to wait until after the elections that we expect are going to be held in June. And only after that, they will see if they can remove Mr. Mugabe and the generals that remain there, the army chiefs, the police chief is on that list. So basically, most of the remaining ones are the securocrats and, of course, Mr. Mugabe's wife, Grace Mugabe. So they are hoping that after the elections, seeing what will happen, then they can remove him.
Very briefly about these elections, they're supposed to take place, at least according to the government sources, between now and June 29th. Is that going to happen?
Most unlikely, because there are a number of reforms that have to take place before those elections are held, and most of the things have not been done. I think they will take place around September.
And of course, the US has not made a decision yet on whether or not to take anybody off the list.
Yes, the US ambassador to Zimbabwe, Mr. Bruce Wharton, is saying that that is the call of the Congress here in America, so they are not simply going to follow what the EU has done. So I think it will take time.
Thank you so much. Blessing Zulu, he's a reporter with VOA's Zimbabwe service. He joined us here today on In Focus.